my name's David Jones. I'm a recovery practitioner with Hafal. Hafal is a leading Welsh charity led by its members, dedicated to supporting people with mental ill health and others with a range of disabilities, their carers and families. Hafal, meaning equal, is the principal organisation in Wales working with individuals recovering from mental health problems, with a special emphasis on those with a serious mental illness. At Hafal, we are committed to providing help, support, advice and friendship for all our client groups in Wales, as we feel so strongly about this. We will take responsibility wherever necessary to ensure that people will not have to cope alone. For more information and a range of free publications surrounding mental health, please visit Hafal's website www.hafal.org.
Good morning, bore da, and welcome to the Hafal Recovery Podcast. Today I'm joined by Dave. How are you doing, Dave?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Good morning. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you.
Get much sleep last night? It was a blustery one down by me. We had a hell of a wind blowing through my attic last night. It kept me up all night.
I did hear a couple of whistles through the wind, so I think about 4 o'clock I was up.
Oh no, it had me all night. And then on the way to work this morning, I've had a felled tree, industrial biffa bin blown and scattered across the road. It's been chaos. I thought that we were in for some decent weather back end of last week when the sun came in, and unfortunately not. But fingers crossed for some good news tomorrow with the update.
Yeah, definitely, and hopefully the spring weather will come out now.
Yeah, we could do with a March like we had last year, couldn't we, when we first went into lockdown? It was like, as soon as we were announced in lockdown, I remember it rained and rained and rained through the beginning of March, and then as soon as lockdown was announced, it was like, I mean, the Maldives, yeah, it was boiling for about a month. So we could do with some of that weather now, I think, to improve morale, can we?
Yes, definitely, and I know we are coming up to 12 months of the pandemic, which is quite crazy when you think of it.
Yeah, and I think we getting used to it, but I feel more optimistic about how things are now with the rates coming down. Personally, I've had my 2 jabs, so feel better for that. I'm having lateral flow testing done twice a week, so feel like we're moving further forward with that. We've touched on, I know with our features today and stuff we've got coming up, we've touched on the impact that coronavirus has had within different organisations and with the people and the partners that we've been speaking to, and they'll give us a bit of a better insight. What exactly have we got coming up on the podcast today? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so on today's podcast, we are going to be speaking about Youth Carers Action Day, and we're also going to have a bit of a feature on the Hafal project Bloom.
Yeah, fab. So our theme to look at this month is Young Carers Action Day, as you said. Before we introduce our features and what's coming up on this month's podcast, I just wanted to take a moment just to thank everyone who listened to our first episode. I was absolutely blown away by the support that we received, by how many people that we reached out to, by the number of listens that we had. Personally, I know all my family and close friends took the time to listen and actually make comments that were based on the podcast. Some of them pulled me up for things that I said, which was brilliant. So I just wanted to thank each and every one of you. You all know who you are, and I hope that we are able to continue to provide you some sort of informative material content moving forward and keep you guys involved and entertained with the podcast. So thank you again.
I just want to second that, David. Thanks to everyone for their support. Any feedback that you've got, we always take it on board. We always listen, and we want to be able to, give you the best podcast possible.
So I believe you caught up with Mike from Hafal around the Bloom project.
Yeah, that's correct. I met with Michael, Enda, and Samantha. Enda is part of Mental Health UK, and Samantha works for Bridgend College. We had a very good discussion over the Bloom project and try to raise awareness around it and the impact of it. Should we have a listen of the conversation?
Yeah, that'd be fab, yeah.
Welcome everybody and good afternoon to Michael, Edna and Sam, and welcome to the Hafal Recovery Podcast. It's great to have you all on this episode of the podcast where we will be discussing the Bloom project. But firstly, welcome to you all, and how is everyone?
Yes, we're well. Thank you for inviting us on the podcast today.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
That's no problem. It's a pleasure to have you all on. So on this episode of the podcast, we'll be discussing Bloom. For the listeners, would it be possible just for you to introduce yourselves and a bit about your background?
Yeah, my name is Michael Harvey. I'm one of the heads of service at Hafal, with a specialism in national contracts and commercial development. One of my roles involves me leading on our Mental Health UK partnership for Wales.
Hi everybody, it's lovely to be here. My name's Enda Egan and I'm the head of Young People's Programmes at Mental Health UK.
Hi there, I'm Sam Gunnison. I'm the Wellbeing and Safeguarding Manager in Bridgend College, and we were the pilot college where Bloom took place.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. I wanted to start off really. Obviously, the last 12 months have been extremely difficult for everyone. But how have you all found it on a professional level? In terms of work, have you had to change the way you've worked? I know everyone's using, Teams and Zoom a lot more.
It has been challenging. In the early days, particularly, it took some time getting used to the increased amount of online meetings, but we've quickly adapted to a new way of working. I don't think you can ever replace face-to-face interaction, but we've learned a lot during this period, and there are some experiences that we'll take forward with us, which will enable us to enhance the way we work and can only benefit the great work that Hafal have delivered through our services and projects.
I think when I sort of listen to your question, I think it's 12 months now. It's a year that this has been going on, and jogging back to when it first happened, thinking it was going to be a few weeks, quickly adapting to doing things online. I cover the UK, so in some ways it's really useful for me to be able to see and communicate with people. We used telephones before, and it's just really good to be able to see people visually as well. Now that we do it that way. And I think professionally as well, it's been just a very busy time in young people's mental health and in that space, and sort of making programs available online. So it's definitely been benefits to it, but it'd be great to get back to sort of face-to-face working and meeting people again when we can.
Mm. And from an FE perspective, we're a fast-paced organisation anyway, so we were moving extremely fast back last March, trying to adapt all our learning to online and supporting learners online, and there was a bit of excitement and energy about it. I think as the year has gone on, it's being able to sustain and maintain that energy and engagement in an online forum, and being able to support everybody in the right way through this online platform. So it's been really, really interesting. I think there has been lots of silver linings and things that we probably wouldn't go back to now, but I think it's about that blended approach when we're able to come out of lockdown, of maybe keeping some of the online bits that do work, but then being able to embrace the face-to-face as well. So I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I think, for me, the face-to-face is always great, and you can't beat that, but it's allowed me to access, other courses and other webinars through online that I wouldn't have been able to attend in person. And I think, like you said there, Sam, it is that blended approach that I think is going to be the way forward. So, Edna, you spoke a little bit about Mental Health UK there and what your role is. Would you be able to give our listeners a bit of an overview over what is Mental Health UK?
Yeah, sure. So Mental Health UK consists of 4 founding charities across the UK. Hafal in Wales, and Mindwise in Northern Ireland, Rethink Mental Illness in England, and Support Mind Scotland in Scotland. And these charities were out 40 years experience of working in the space of mental health. It largely works with corporate partners, so it engages with corporate partners around securing funding to design and deliver programs. The first programme, significant programme, was mental health and money advice, and which was through the Lloyds Banking Group partnership that Mental Health UK has. And the current programme that we're delivering now in partnership with Lloyds is Bloom, which is a resilience-based programme for 14 to 18-year-olds, and it's delivered in schools and colleges across the UK. Never has a time for young people's resilience been more important than it is now. When we designed the programme, we didn't know that there was a pandemic on the way. We're very, very fortunate. It focuses on young people and the transitions they go through in their life. If I just sort of take a step back to we implemented the programme in September 2019, and how we came up with the programme in its current format, we did a significant amount of research throughout the UK where we spoke with young people about what really matters to them. I think what young people were finding as stressors, what was impacting their well-being and their general mental health. We also engaged with teachers throughout the UK because we found it was really important that teachers were involved in this programme. From our research, a lot of the feedback we were getting was, we want to work with young people's mental health and we want to support young people's well-being, but we don't necessarily have the skills or the time to do it. So we wanted teachers to come along on the journey with us, as opposed to just providing a 1 hour sort of awareness programme. We wanted something that was more long-term. So when we gathered that information from teachers and from young people, we went and designed the programme that's in its current format. So the first thing we do is we train teachers inside a school or college in the content of the programme, and then we embark on a workshop, delivery of 6 workshops with those teachers. So it's a co-delivery programme where we have one of our mental health training associates who's in the classroom delivering the programme with the teachers from that particular school or college. And it's very based around scenarios about what young people are going through and what is challenging at this time. And it's based on cognitive behavioural therapy, where we expose something that might be stressing young people, and we give them then the tools and resources to be able to work around what's causing them stress. It gives young people agency, and it gives them control over what works for them, because not one thing works for all young people, and it allows them to sort of have that ability to identify what works for them. This time last year, we were in this position where we had a product, if you like, which was young people's resilience, but the place where we delivered it was removed from us, where schools and colleges, throughout the UK started to close. So we quickly moved the programme to online, where we have several offerings where we train teachers up with the programme online. But we also co-deliver it remotely as well to schools. So that it's really good that we were able to do that, and it's really good that we were able to provide this support at this time. Up to now, we've delivered the programme to nearly 50,000 young people across the UK and trained nearly 900 teachers. So it's going to be around for quite a few more years, but it's already making its footprint in that space for young people's resilience. And it's just a really challenging time for young people. The amount of, it's a challenging time for everyone, but I think young people have been particularly feeling it. And it's just really great that we can, provide a programme that supports them. And during this time, there's been a lot of uncertainty and a lot of loss of hope going on with young people. And it's just really positive that we're able to fill some of that, and actually it provides some encouragement, because I think it's really important for people to have that, young people to have that right now.
Yeah, I think obviously the big thing I picked up from what you were saying there is that the teachers are getting skilled in it so that they're aware of it, and I think that's something that's a real benefit, to that project.
Definitely, and I think one of the things we always wanted to do with Bloom as well is make sure we had something that was sustainable, is that you sort of embed in the culture inside a school, if you like, where we would go in and train teachers and then co-deliver with them, but it then continues. And we know now it does continue. There are schools all across the UK where Bloom has been going on for well over a year. The first cohort of young people that was trained, other teachers are training other teachers inside schools, and they're just continuing the delivery of the programme. So it becomes well known inside a school, and I think that's really important that we have that that role, and the teachers are the people who will continue that.
Michael, so what's the impact been like of Bloom in Wales?
Bloom's been very successful since we launched in September 2019. We've been active in all 22 counties of Wales, delivering the programme to both schools and colleges in English and in Welsh, which is very important to us all at Hafal by making sure that all resources are delivered bilingually. There's been some great feedback from teachers and students. So from teachers, they commented on how great the programme is, with how well it's structured, the excellent resources, plenty of support from training associates, and the content really meets the needs of our young people. The teachers feel that they're better equipped to have the discussions with their students, and teachers are actually benefiting from the content themselves. Some of the comments from students, they actually enjoy the fact that the programme is scenario based, so the spotlight is never on them, it's on a scenario, so the students can comment on that particular scenario. And it's also very engaging. So for example, when we talk about resilience, we introduce plasticine to demonstrate the similarities of being adaptable, how we can recover and rebuild, and how we can change and develop over time. And the general feedback is that students have become more confident in expressing their feelings and are able to support each other. So there's a lot of peer support going on there. Enda mentioned about some of the challenges which we've all gone through with having to adapt what was initially a face-to-face delivery model. We soon made Bloom available online, which has proven to be a very popular choice for our schools and colleges, with staff being able to access the training sort of morning, afternoon, evenings or weekends, if you like. And in fact, Sam was one of the first people to get in touch with us to see if that was a possibility. Can we take this programme online to ensure that we continue with the delivery?
So Sam, obviously you got in contact with Michael about Bloom. How did you hear about it?
So in the very early days, my line manager, Joe Baldwin, who is the assistant principal for Learner Journey in Bridgend College, he had seen something on Twitter about the Bloom programme, wanting to pilot in schools and colleges. So he contacted Michael and arranged a meeting to look at what the programme was about, what we needed to do and how we could support. So I met Michael in that meeting, and we were able to be part of the actual devising of the resources, which was absolutely fantastic. It was a really good session, and it's been a really lovely journey seeing from that very first session of just throwing ideas around and kind of saying what we needed as an FE institution compared to those who were maybe based in a school, and then actually having those resources being delivered to the college, and they're absolutely fantastic. They're so engaging, they're easy to follow, they're easy to read, and there's fantastic resources for the students as well as the staff, including all the kind of lesson planning. Absolutely everything you need are in those resources to deliver the Bloom programme. So for us it was an absolute win-win, and it came around the time that we were actually working towards devising a whole college approach towards mental health and wellbeing. So it fed into that as well, in terms of how we make our support for learners robust around supporting them with their mental health and wellbeing. So what has really stood out for us is that we thought that we would ask the curriculum area leads for Learner Journey, who were in our curriculum team, to actually undertake the training in the first instance before we started putting it out to tutors. Our CALs for Learner Journey are invested in supporting the mental health and wellbeing of our students, and they're the go-to in terms of curriculum. So they work closely with the wellbeing team. So they attended the training in the first instance and rolled out the first two workshops with the support of staff from the programme. So they actually delivered it independently of the wellbeing team. And it was really interesting because one of the tutors had said that she had two identical groups, one in Group A, one in Group B, and she delivered Bloom to Group A. And she said, although it was done in the first 6 weeks of the academic year, by the end of the academic year, she could see, obviously, the difference between the two groups as to who had undertaken Bloom and who hadn't, because the group that had undertaken Bloom were much more cohesive, they were much more supportive to each other, they had developed firmer bonds of friendship with each other, and as they hit little blips through the academic year, she would remind them of things that they had covered in Bloom, and they would revisit that with their workbook and be able to move forward quite quickly from whatever had hindered them, whereas the other group who hadn't had Bloom were much more fractured. They struggled a lot more when things tripped them up. So it was really interesting hearing what she was saying, really, about the difference between that Bloom had made with those two groups, and it was just a simple case of one of them had had Bloom and one of them hadn't. So I think that was a real standout point. And in terms of the feedback from, like, we've had quite a number of staff now that have gone through the training and delivered workshops both online and physically face-to-face. And we always get the same feedback of feeling very safe and supported. The students feel safe and supported, so do the staff. They feel better having done the Bloom programme, and they feel like they're more empowered to identify how they're feeling and what they need to do if they start to struggle. So I think that's been really, really positive. And in terms of seeing the change in stress levels since the beginning of the pandemic, I can honestly say that in the first lockdown, we did deliver Bloom and we had really good results, but I don't think we were seeing the levels of anxiety and isolation that we're seeing now. I think as the time has gone on and we're approaching, we are a year since it first started, the levels of anxiety in our students now are much, much higher. So when we do deliver workshops like Bloom, we're having to reduce it down to maybe 6 students so that they feel safe within those groups, talking about how they're feeling. There's a lot of anxiety about the thought of returning to college. There's a real need to want to return to college, but they're anxious about what that's going to look like and whether they're going to be at risk. It's whether they come to college and then they present risks to others that maybe they live at home with. So there's lots of different issues that students are dealing with. They're still trying to get used, like they much prefer learning face-to-face on campus. So they're struggling with motivation. That is coming up quite a lot now in terms of, getting up, turning on the screen, and then independently working afterwards. So I think the impact of the pandemic in terms of young people's mental health and well-being is going to be a constant thing over the next year or so, I would say, and it's affected every single age group from what I can see. But I think with things like Bloom in available to us to be able to support our learners, it's a step in the right direction. I think, it's been a key resource for us through the pandemic.
I think, from my opinion, that's brilliant to hear. And for yourself, who's based in a college, Monday to Friday, you've seen the difference with your own eyes, and I think your eyes don't lie to you.
No, absolutely not. And you can't. You have to listen to what the students are telling you, and when you're getting almost 100%, I think it is 100% feedback. It's very high percentages of positive feedback about their experience when they've been through a programme like that.
And is this the kind of feedback, Michael, that you get from other schools and colleges?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the picture throughout Wales. This is the feedback that I'm getting whenever I'm speaking with schools or colleges. There's been no consistency. The schools don't know when they're going back, if they'll be back, and it's a big challenge for everyone, for staff and students. Recent research shows that the experience of the pandemic is likely to continue to increase existing mental health and well-being problems among young people where 1 in 6 young people now have a probable mental illness, which is up from the 1 in 9 previously. So there's definitely going to be an issue that we need to support here, and I do think that Bloom is in a good position to offer that support.
So how can colleges or schools get involved with Bloom?
Well, we'd encourage all schools and colleges to engage with the programme. Bloom is a free resource. I'm happy for people to contact me directly by email to discuss the programme further. So my email address is michael.harvey@havel.org, or schools and colleges can visit our website, which is mentalhealth-uk.org, where you can find information on our Bloom programme, including our online teacher training schedule, where you can book yourself a place for you and your colleagues at a time that's convenient for you.
All those links will be made public when we post this podcast on our social media. I just want to say a massive thank you, to the three of you. The work you're doing is absolutely brilliant. I think Bloom is so important at the moment with the pandemic and with kids not being in school. And I just want to say, keep up the good work. It's been brilliant.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for attending, and we'll speak soon.
So that was me catching up with Michael, Enda and Samantha. I found it really, really useful to learn more about the roles that they were all in, the impact of Bloom, and the positive impact of it.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think we touched on it at the beginning of the show when we introduced him. We talked about the impact that COVID-19 has had, and we can't get away from that, unfortunately, at the moment. I think one of the key things for me was listening to Sam, coming from Bridgend College's point of view, and saying that they're going to look at continuing to use a blend of online and classroom-based learning moving forward. I think that's really telling as to not just the impact that COVID will have had on society, but how important it's been for us to adapt the way that we are working off schools and colleges, the way that they've delivered their materials. And they've obviously had some success with it to feel as though that is something that's worth keeping with moving forward.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, I am. And like I said in the podcast, for myself, face-to-face learning, beats nothing. It's absolutely brilliant. But I've also managed to access courses and webinars where, they could have been across the world, and I've managed to access them just by sitting in my house with a laptop. So I've really benefited from that, both of them, really.
Yeah, definitely. The other parts that I thought were really quite inspiring, really. Enda touched on the sustainability of Bloom, and I know that this conversation that I've had with Mike before now, and what really drew him to the project, and he thought was a really important point about it, is that sustainability, almost that legacy element of we're undertaking that trainer role of upskilling teachers who can then upskill each other to upskill pupils, and I think that almost that sort of gradual the trickle down of information from top to bottom, but it's staying consistent is really important, and I think that's a really, really powerful way of educating young people, but not only young people, the staff as well. Whereas Sam touched on a little bit later on in that piece, the use of the resources and the materials, and how engaging she found everything and interactive she found everything, which, as we know, working with young people is really, really important. So yeah, that sustainability element for teachers and for pupils, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and what I took from that was, the teachers are with the students, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and for them to see it, and if they can pick out if there was anything that happened, they'll be able to address it very quickly. And that's something that really reassured me.
Yeah, and they support that, and they talk about that as well. That Sam touched on that by saying where she's talking about the difference in the cohesion between the two groups. So there's evidence to back that up. If the one teacher noticed the difference between group A and group B, and she's saying that the one group seemed more together and working more efficiently and were being more compassionate to each other and supporting each other. They found it easier to overcome any incidents together and work through problems. And the only difference being between the two groups is the one had the advantage of undertaking the Bloom project and the other one didn't. I think that is, if there's any highlight of the impact that project is having, that's it right there for me. That's an absolutely brilliant outcome for not just those staff but the young people as well, and credit to them.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously speaking to Michael, he said that the Bloom is free for schools, colleges to access. We have got some links which we will add to our social media in case there are any colleges or schools that want to get involved. And I think it could be beneficial, especially in this time. Like Sam alluded to, the pandemic, it is going to have a lasting effect.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that we are finding ways to still implement Bloom and for it to still be impactful going forward, with it being delivered online and those changes that have been implemented to uphold that, really. So moving on for our second part, I was very lucky to catch up with Ali Page, who has been involved in Young Carers programs and projects, Michelle Boyd from Hafal, who has been supporting her. Obviously, our theme this month is Young Carers Action Day. So here is me catching up with those guys a little earlier this week. Welcome everybody and good afternoon to Alison and Michelle. Thank you ever so much for being a part of Hafal's Recovery podcast. Here with us today to talk about Young Carers Action Day, which is our theme for this podcast. Firstly, welcome and how are you both?
Thanks for inviting me, Dave. Really good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm all good, getting there as far as things go. Michelle, how are you?
I'm fine. We're both being very polite, aren't we? Waiting to see who talks first.
You noticed that, Michelle?
Yeah. Long pause. Who's going to go? I'm fine, thank you. Like you say, just adapting to these strange ways of working, but good.
No, I know. So we're here today to talk about Young Carers Action Day. We as Hafal have helped to support some young carers and young carers groups recently working in the South Wales area, Michelle. So what I'd like to do for listeners that won't know who you are is to ask you to both formally introduce yourselves and your job roles. And just give us a little bit of background on the ins and outs of what you do, if you could. Alison, if you wouldn't mind leading off with that.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ali Page. I work for Monmouthshire County Council and I'm part of the Carers Network. So we've been around quite a while and we support and help to identify carers within the community of Monmouthshire between 0 and 100 plus, if that's the age scope. So we're a team set up to look at the support that they need, to listen to them, to help them tap into the resources out there. So that's fundamentally my role within Monmouthshire Council.
Lovely, fab. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming on board with us today. Really, really appreciate it. And then in-house, our very own Michelle Boyd, if you could introduce yourself formally and exactly what you do for us, please and thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I'm Michelle Boyd and I'm County Manager for Hafal in Gwent. And I also deliver on the Monmouthshire Carer Services alongside Ali. So traditionally, we've always supported carers of people with mental health problems, and we usually work with the older age group. It's long been an ambition, a desire to look at our services and how we can make sure they're suitable for younger people, which is why I'm working alongside Ali a little bit more now, which is great. And we'll be able to talk a bit more about that during the podcast.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of touch on that a little bit straight away, if we could, on how this theme of work at the moment came about, and how Hafal have been asked to support Ali and Monmouthshire County Council with the stuff that they're doing.
So as I say, we've been funded by the local authority to support carers for some time, and we have noticed that the people we support are generally over 30, and if not older than that. Whereas we are aware that there are definitely young carers who are leaving young carer services, but they're not accessing us for whatever reasons. So it's been a gap that we've been aware of for some time, and it's one that we've wanted to plug for some time. Think about what do we need, how do we need to adapt and tailor our services to meet their needs. So it's a conversation that Ali and I have been having recently, along with the rest of the team. Did you want to pick up on that, Ali?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, you absolutely just follow on from you, Michelle. You're right. And for a long time, we've had gaps in the provisions and the groups of people that we've been working with. And working in partnership with Hafal has come about for us really when we've looked at the transitions work. So that's looking at carers that are aged 18 to 25. So there was a gap in our service there. So up to date, we've had a young carers service supported by Carers Trust South East Wales. And they typically would provide support from age 8 to 18. And that left that gap from 18 to 25. So Michelle and I have done quite a bit of linking up. We've known each other quite some time now, and there was always that overlap that we kept coming across, where perhaps Michelle would find she'd be working or supporting somebody in the community to support their mental health needs, and then that would sort of tailor into finding that there was a young carer in the background that was having some needs themselves.
Yeah, no, that's fab. How you talked about some of the age ranges there, Ali. When you talk specifically about young carers, obviously our focus at the moment and for this month is Young Carers Action Day, which we'll get on and talk about later. But how do you go about the process of identifying who is a young carer more specifically? What does that process look like?
Okay, so being a young carer is ageless. Young carers don't necessarily identify themselves as being young carers either. They feel as if they're somebody that is just helping a member of the family and doing what is ordinary and what's usual. So getting them to understand that they're actually providing a caring support role within that family, that's the first challenge that we overcome, because quite often they've adapted to it so well that they actually don't see that as something extra that they're doing.
Yeah.
So for us, the work was around reaching out and making sure that the word young carers is out there, and that people understand what a young carer actually means. So it's somebody that is doing more than, over and above. So yeah, that was the first thing, and that's a difficult way for many young carers to associate themselves in a caring role.
Yeah, I suppose it shows the quality that those young people hold, really, is that they're taking on and undertaking these roles without even really understanding the value that has, or the importance that has to someone when they're deemed their caregiver. Michelle, do we as Hafal, do we have some sort of impact or examples of identifying young carers and being able to signpost them on to support services or help to get them engaged with services that Alison provides?
So yeah, listening to what Ali was saying, for me, the way the Carers Network in Monmouthshire functions is just amazing. It's a very much joined up approach, and it highlights the value and the importance of us all working together and having those conversations, because undoubtedly that helps identify carers. So if I'm working with an older carer, parents, wife looking after their husband, for instance, and you start to become aware that there's another young person in the household, I can pick up the phone and have a chat with Ali and say, what do you think? There seems to be a little bit more going on in this situation where there's an expectation or a hope that that young person will be doing something. And do we need to be putting some support in place? And having that connection with a team of people who have all got carers at the very heart of what they want to do has been invaluable. And I like to think that we've kind of identified things and picked up and offered support that's made all the difference.
Yeah, definitely. I think the partnership that we've got now and the understanding of what you do and what we do really works harmoniously. And like I said, when we look at identifying those young carers, it is a real challenge. And unless we've got somebody out there that is carrying forward that message as well, that they could possibly be a young carer.
Yeah, I think that's key for us as well, is working within those communities, is being able to help to identify needs, not just for the people that we're supporting, but their families as well. If we're supporting older adults, it's about supporting that family, and if that young person does have those needs, then it's about us as individuals being able to identify them. I wanted to stay relevant and on the relevant topic. I know everyone's sort of almost sick of talking about it at the moment. How has COVID-19 and the pandemic impacted the way that you work day to day with these young people, and even how the process of identifying them, has that been greatly affected? How have you managed to work through the pandemic, Ali?
Yeah, I definitely. It certainly changed the way that people have got together and reached out for support. So my post was put into place just at the start of the pandemic. So this time last year, I was really just in my first few weeks of working with young carers. And even for myself, it was a moment of, what am I going to do now if I can't go out and if I can't see people? How can I do my job? And if I was thinking like that, I'm sure that there were hundreds of young carers across Monmouthshire that were also feeling the effects of, what if I can't get out? What if I can't go to the shops now? What if I can't see my friends, do those activities that were keeping me well? That was a real big change for us all.
Yeah, definitely. And how have the young people specifically taken to some of those changes, the ones that you're working with day to day? Has there been a great, I know we in our Hafal projects, we work with young people, and we're still trying to be innovative in the way that we engage them, trying to use things like this, platforms like Microsoft Teams and Zoom, and do online quizzes. The uptake's sporadic would be the best way to describe it. I think that there's a barrier within mental health anyway around getting people in general who have had bad experiences or are suffering with poor mental health to access things like this, like webcams and web-based social media platforms. And I think for young people, those barriers with their confidence and other issues can be huge. Have you found any of those challenges within your association as well?
Yeah, definitely, Dave. I think what we expected or what we anticipated was that young people would make this move really easily because they were much more familiar with it. But behind that is possibly a young carer struggling with their own mental health, looking after somebody with known mental health conditions. So expecting them to pick up the phone was a real challenge, because we know ourselves it's automatic to shut down when you're under pressure or feeling alone. You tend to switch off a bit. So reaching out was really important for me to do as a worker, to make sure that they knew that we were here, because quite often it's the hardest thing to reach out and seek that support when you are too entrenched with your day-to-day just coping. So we've seen numbers increase with young carers struggling with their own mental health and keeping that well. So it's definitely had an adverse effect. We can see the effects of that, but the tools that we've got, I think we've definitely made the best use of it. And it's also given a lot of young carers some structure as well. So knowing that somebody's going to call and talk about their caring role and make contact, that's been really important. So whether we get to see them visually or just a voice at the end of the phone, us reaching out to them and them knowing that we're going to do that has been really, really important.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think making sure that young people are aware that we're there is vitally important for them. And for young people, I think that so they know that something is happening for them, which leads us on quite nicely really to what we're here to talk about and to expose and give a highlight to, which is Young Carers Action Day, which is on the 16th of March. I've done a little bit of research and I'm going to gloat about my newfound knowledge that it's no longer Young Carers Awareness Day. We've changed awareness to action this year. I believe I'm right in saying,
You are?
Ali.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
Is there a reason behind that? What's the idea for the change in name?
Yeah, well, the Carers Trust, they originally set up the day. So they came up with Young Carer Awareness Day. And following COVID and the inability really of us to physically reach out to each other, that's probably one of the aspects that has driven the change. But also young carers feel as if we're now at a point where they want action rather than sympathy, or action rather than saying you understand, let's do something about it. So it's a much more purposeful name, I think, that they've given it Action Day, because it does encourage people to join in and become involved. And yes, David, it is March the 16th. And as I said, it's Carers Trust's idea, which has got thousands and thousands of young carers across Wales together, joining in with activities for many years. But this year with the Action Day, the focus is really upon protecting young carers and their futures. So we're looking at skills. So there's a huge range of stuff going on within the communities, and we're encouraging everybody to be behind it, really, to get behind it and support it, and champion those young carers and the things that they are doing that are increasing their skills and helping them to develop for the future.
Fab. So when you talk about skills, you're talking about young people being able to identify that they have transferable skills, especially young carers who will be obviously empathetic, compassionate, understanding. There's a real push on the theme of skills then this year.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've got the digital media now to help support lots of skills, as well as those emotional those emotional intelligence skills. So yes, we've got lots of people that have been doing, or lots of young carers doing things and managing situations that they've never needed to manage before. COVID has given an extra layer to the pressures that they've been under, and certainly they're really showing such levels of resilience and skill to be able to navigate through a world which seems to have been changing day to day, week to week through all of this pandemic. So they've been doing things like going out and getting shopping on a practical level for perhaps a mum or dad that is now shielding and not able to do that, but also their skills have grown in terms of using digital media, reading, education, because now they're using online education tools, which is something new for them, and they really are progressing. So there's a huge focus this year on the things that they have learned to do so well, and are really excelling at. They're not always the things that we think about in terms of skills, as you say. It's not whether you're a great gymnast or something like that. It's really about, are you empathic with other people? Do you understand their situations? Can you read body language? They've really come up and over in terms of expectation. They've been remarkable.
Yeah. Michelle, it only seems fair whilst we're talking about young people and skills, I bring you in to add weight to to this conversation as well on your experience of supporting young people and how durable and resilient they can be, especially through the pandemic and with things going on.
Yeah, that's certainly my experience. The other thing I find is their communication skills, as you touched on, Ali, are exceptional.
Yeah.
And they're very good at asking for things. They've had to learn how to be assertive and go out and say, this is what I need, or this is what the person I care for needs. So those life skills that they have developed are fantastic. But it's helping them see that. They often feel that they've perhaps been held back in terms of their education. They haven't had the same opportunities, and helping them recognise that actually they have, these skills that are going to be set them on a pathway for the future really, really well.
Yeah.
So that is Young Carers Action Day, which, as we say, is coming up on the 16th of March. It's really funny, actually. It was only this morning whilst I was on my way into work and I was thinking about this piece coming up, and I had a little moment whilst driving in. I probably shouldn't admit this whilst we're talking on a podcast and it's going to go out naturally. I don't really concentrate when I'm driving sometimes. My mind wanders elsewhere. But this morning, I just happened to be thinking of all this stuff and what it was like for me as a young person, and the stresses and the pressures that there are of especially those ages between sort of high school ages, 12 to 14, 15, 16, 17, exam stress, you're learning who you are. I had relationship stresses. I started work when I was 14 and all the way through, I've never been out of work. I was imagining all that, and then I was thinking of I was trying to put myself in the position of a young carer and going, imagine having all that and then having all that on top of everything that was going on. And then as quickly as I thought, imagine having it all going on, that would all be taken away from you in a way, or that would be impacted. All those things that I was used to would be completely and utterly impacted. I was the most socially active I ever was between the ages of 14 and 18. I was out every night with my friends, and I was thinking, well, you wouldn't have that. That would be severely impacted. And it was only this morning that I was thinking just how much of an impact that would actually have on a young person's life. And then when you throw in the mix everything that's going on at the moment, I think it's vitally important that there's broad support packages for young people, and that we can give as much exposure to Young Carers Action Day as possible.
Absolutely. David, I'm just thinking when you say, if you can put yourself in someone else's shoes like you've just said, you can really feel how challenging the role is for many of our young carers.
Yeah.
When you go back home and you're looking after someone with a health need or disability, or somebody that's perhaps using substances or alcohol, it really does impact, and you've got that extra very weighty layer on your shoulders. So as you say, it's hard for us to imagine, but when you can, and when you're able to feel that empathy and share that perspective just for a moment, you realize what a tremendous job all of the young carers are doing in just keeping their families safe and well.
I think that was one of the most powerful things that I heard this year, and it was about one of the people I called you about, Ali. I was talking to the mum who's a carer, and she was describing how the situation is for the 11-year-old daughter, and saying she feels like she doesn't have a dad. It's somebody that she prompts to get up in the morning, that she prompts to eat some food or go out for a walk. She doesn't actually have a relationship in terms of a father-daughter relationship. And I just thought that's so powerful and so sad.
It is. I don't think we can underestimate the challenges that our young carers deal with day to day, and then to ask them to focus on their education and make a plan for the future, to come up with ideas of what they want to achieve in life. For many young carers, that's not an easy thing to comprehend. Just getting through week to week is sometimes challenging enough. So really giving the recognition that we want to support them, we want to improve those skills, build those skills, introduce them to opportunities to build new skills, That is so important. But you're absolutely right, Michelle. When you listen to the stories of some of our young carers, you do realise what a tremendous thing that they do, and it's very hard for others that are not in that caring role to really see how much they give up and how much they sacrifice in terms of their own personal growth.
Yeah. Michelle, that was really powerful insight. Thank you for that, for sharing that. I think it's really important that they hopefully there may be someone listening at the moment. It's very easy to forget that we're recording this and it's going out, and it's like we're just having a conversation. There may be someone listening in who feels like that and doesn't currently have any support around them. Ali, it'd be really helpful. I know you've put together some tips for young carers to share with them. If we could share those, that would be fab.
Before young carers realise it, they've gone from just helping mum or dad or their sibling with the odd thing or two just because they want to and they want to feel involved, to actually being the go-to person, the person that's now relied on to do that task. So getting the message across that, you know, if you think that you're a young carer but you're unsure, I'm going to give you, Dave, my Super 7 skills. Is
Lovely.
that okay?
Yeah.
So these skills, these are all skills. So if we've got a young carer, number one would be get in touch with the carers team and have a chat with us about being a young carer. You can find the details on MCC website, monmouthshire.gov.uk. We can add you to the database and make sure that you get updates about what's going on in your area for carers, and show you the community of support that is out there and around you. So that's about asking for help. Okay, so that's number one. Number two would be let your GP know. Let them know that you're a carer. Number three would be to let your school know that you're a carer, because if schools know that we've got carers in schools, they can help you to work out the best way to support your studies. Number four would be learn to make time to take care of yourself, because you are number one. You've got to put your health first in terms of looking after someone, because you've got to be really well to do that. Number five would be get involved, because there is support out there with other carers, and caring is hard. But if you've got someone that you can talk to and learn from and make friends with that is also a carer, that's a really good, strong support for you. Number six would be to be encouraged, because we've got 230 plus around our mark of identified young carers across Monmouthshire. So you're not alone. And number 7 of the Super 7 skill list is plan. Plan with the person that you look after in the event of anything changing, or if there's an emergency. Talk to the person that you care for and make sure that you both know what will happen if the situation really changes, and write that down if it helps. And again, you can talk to us at the Monmouthshire Carers Network and we will help you through that, and we can help you put a plan in place if that's what you need.
Oh, that's fab. Thank you, Addy. I'm going to tell you, as amazing as all those skills are, there's actually a historical event for our podcast, because we've never actually had a proper feature, and I'm going to unofficially title it Ali's Super 7.
Oh,
it's
brilliant.
the first ever official feature we've had on the podcast, so you've made history as well with that. That is what a way to cement those tips. So thank you ever so much for sharing that. We will share the website that you touched on as well. We'll put a hyperlink in the description and the bio for the MCC website that you mentioned. Are there any other websites or anything that you would like to promote for young people to go to, for carers to seek help, or even just some more information?
Yeah, there's yeah, sorry, Dave. Yeah, there are. I'm just eager to give them. You can hear me. Yeah, just as I said, pop onto the monmouthshire.gov.uk website. Also, if you're a young carer, pop onto carers.org. They have got loads of resources, and you will if you pop pop onto that one, you'll find loads of stuff in relation to Young Carers Action Day. There's resources, there's skill making charts, there's activities. There are so many things on offer on these websites. Another really good one is to Google Twinkl without an E. So it's Twinkl. So if you type in Twinkl and pop in Young Carers again, there's a mine of resources, lots of it related to Young Carers Action Day. So a lot around skills and achievements. And yeah, there's the Facebook page as well for Monmouthshire Carers Network. If you live in Monmouthshire, I would advise you to just, and you're on Facebook, of course, not everybody wants to be on Facebook, but if you are on there, drop onto the Monmouthshire Carers Network. We post regular things that might be of use to carers, information and advice. And again, like I said, if you think that you're a carer and you want some support, as low level or whatever, just let us know and we'll have a chat with you.
Fab. Thank you, Ali. All of those links, websites, Facebook pages, we will get them shared along with the podcast's release as well. So they'll all be available along with the podcast. Michelle, I'm aware that there's a keen puppy in the background of your house.
I had to message Dave in the chat while you were talking, Ali, to say I'd gone on mute because the puppy was outside the door making its presence felt very loudly.
We're all working from home. It's 2021. If the puppy wants to say a word, I'm more than happy for that.
Proper competition for you, Ali. It really would have been. You would have been drowned out.
I just wanted to see if there were any closing comments from yourself with regards to anything we've discussed.
I think for me, it's very much looking forward to developing all this transition work for young carers. Really enjoy that partnership we have. It's very productive. It's very, it's not only is it productive, it just feels very inclusive. I love the holistic, nurturing atmosphere that we all create for our carers. You know, so I'm looking forward to continuing that relationship and developing services very much.
Fab.
Brilliant.
That's amazing. Alison, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been an absolute privilege, and I hope that we can give as much exposure to Young Carers Action Day as possible. Again, a reminder, that is next Tuesday. So Tuesday the 16th of March, Young Carers Action Day 2021. Alison, Michelle, thank you ever so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we will catch up again soon.
Thank you very much for having us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks both for having me too. It's been a joy.
Thank you both. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
So there we are. That's our piece for Young Carers Action Day. Really, really brilliant insight there from Ali and Michelle, and we're really thankful to have had them on the show. Any thoughts from yourself listening to that, mate?
The biggest part I took from that was the awareness of a carer, and for young people to understand when they are being a carer.
Yeah.
And I think the work that they're both doing is absolutely fantastic. And I know it speaks about, bridging the gaps between services, being able to offer support, Hafal working and supporting the council. And it does sound that it's all coming together.
Yeah, the big thing for me, and I touched on it obviously in the piece, was trying to put myself in that young person's position for a moment, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult to even comprehend the impact that would have on a young person. But how that would impact me now as a fully grown adult would be huge. But to think of what young people go through and what I went through, just my own experiences as a young person, and to try and think of having a caring role and responsibility in my life at that age is so difficult. So I can only commend those young people for being able to do that and having those skills, which obviously is a big part of what Young Carers Action Day is looking at this year, is the theme behind skills.
And I think for me, whenever you hear the word carer, we always think of an adult.
Yeah.
We never think of a young person that could be that could be a carer, and I think it is about bringing that awareness about it.
Yeah, hugely, and obviously there's again, as we touched on, there's that change from it was Young Carers Awareness Day, and this year has been changed to Young Carers Action Day. So we will still continue to raise awareness of it, but these young people and these young carers now actually really want some action and some outcomes from support services, from the government, and they really want their voice heard, which I think is really empowering and really positive, that young people know what they want, and they've got the ability to ask for it. And I only hope that we as support services and the people that work with them are able to provide them with that platform to confidently be able to ask for what they want and seek the action that is required, basically.
Yeah, and I know we spoke obviously in the last podcast about the pandemic, and I think for the young carers, especially, with the pandemic going on, and everything else that they've got to do, it's extremely stressful time for them. And I think, like you've said earlier, the way they've, conducted themselves has been fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Two really nice pieces and features there, Aaron, for our second episode. We are looking at obviously growing and expanding now. So as we've said, links and hashtags will be shared with the down below, wherever you're watching us or listening to us at the moment. There will be some links and some helpful websites attached. Any closing comments from yourself?
Yeah, I agree, David. The features this month were brilliant and really inspiring. Again, like we said last month, if there's any feedback, please get in contact with ourselves. It's how we can grow, it's how we can develop. And thank you for listening. And we will be recording a new podcast for next month.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.